you'll see that on page 41, section 3 is entitled Major Variations of the Perfect Tense. Here we run into some bigger problems. Okay? And the problem is generated by the fact that there are two categories of irregular verbs that technically have only two consonants and not three. All right? I told you that all verbal roots, using katal as an example, have three root letters, appropriately called positions 1, 2, and 3. All right? There are two categories of irregular verbs, and here we really get to a more traditional understanding of irregular as being, and now for something completely different. There are two categories of verbal roots that have only two consonants. All right? The first category has only the first and the third consonant with nothing in the middle. All right? No consonant at all. An example of one of these words is the verbal root seem. That's what the dictionary form is. Now, if you see the root seem, what do you see? How many consonants are there in this root?
3.
How many consonants are there in this root? This is a trick question. 2. What's this yod? That yod is a mater letter vowel with the herrick. See? So you really don't have a middle root letter. You have the first one and the last one, and there's nothing in the middle. These are technically called second wow or second ayin or second herrick or second vowel, or what do they call these? I don't know. Second yod. The fact of the matter is they're telling you that there's a vowel in the middle. The more popular designation of this pattern, and the one that everybody uses, is hollow. These are called hollow roots. Why? Because there's nothing in the middle. Missing the middle root letter. For all practical purposes, this root is not seem, but sam. Just the sin and the maim. I'll give you another example of a hollow root. There's a root bow. Bow. And again, you'll see that this middle root letter is not a root letter at all. It's a vowel. Here's an example of a second wow trying to designate the vowel. When in fact, this root is not really bow, but simply a baith aleph or ba. I'm not going to put a vowel there at all right now. I shouldn't. That'll only confuse you. A third category of hollow root is exemplified by the word coom. Coom. And again, you'll see that that middle root letter is the vowel. This is actually a 2 wow, but the vowel is pointed as a shurek, not a holem. It's an u vowel. But for all practical purposes, the consonants are simply the initial kof and the final maim. All right? Now, when we conjugate these in the perfect tense, okay, it's just these two letters that we're going to use. The perfect third singular masculine of this root simply takes the two letters and uses the comets. Remember the comets of our katal pattern? I said that comets is fairly distinctive, so much so that you can call it a constant comets, and that becomes the vowel of the two letters of the hollow root. In fact, all three of these patterns, whether it's kum, which becomes kam, or bo, which becomes ba, or seem, which becomes sam, all have the same comets in the perfect. Do you see that? They all turn out the same. This is why you need to learn the root, and why the vocabulary will give you the root with the vowel letter in it. In other words, you do have to know whether it's an I vowel, an O vowel, or a U vowel, because this is really the root that you'll see in a lexicon. However, it all gets leveled the minute you see it in the perfect third singular masculine, because they all end up in this pattern, 2 consonants and an A vowel, or the comets, like that. Yeah.
Does that comb ever actually come into real use? Or
Yes. That's why you need to learn these forms. All right? Not yet, but soon. You will need to know what the middle letter is. It does occur in other verb forms. What you don't know is that in these roots, in these irregular verb patterns, the root that we're giving you, which is seem or bow or coom, is actually the infinitive form. All right? Every other verb form we learn as dictionary citation as the perfect third singular masculine, katala, shama, shamar, whatever it is, right? But here we're using the infinitive. Why? Because we got to get that vowel back into the game. Now again, that sounds confusing, and it'll make more sense later on when we see that this actually matters. My point here is that whatever the root is, when we get to looking at the actual perfect, and let's just use coom as our paradigm, the perfect third singular masculine form is simply going to be com. All right? Now, having learned that much, the rest of the paradigm, and let's go ahead and make our paradigm just to see if we can do this, all right? Make our katal, katala, katalta business. The rest of the paradigm you already know, okay? How are we going to take, if it's this third singular masculine, how are we going to make it third singular feminine? We're going to take the com, now I got to change this to a medial main, but big deal, and I'm going to add a comets A. Well, duh. No tricks here. All right. What about this vowel? It was comets. Is there any reason to change it from comets? No. Open syllable. The MAME is now being used to start the next syllable, but this is an open syllable, should have a long vowel. All right. What would you anticipate the second person singular masculine being? Ta.